Welcome back to the West Ham Network. This is a little opinion piece, really, and it's all about one man or maybe several men, and maybe the situation that I've titled the show transfer embargo between West Ham and Spurs. Well, it's not an official transfer embargo. It's actually technically an unofficial transfer embargo because recently we're hearing loads of reports that West Ham have initiated some interest in this lad, Djed Spence, who is, of course, of Tottenham Hotspur. Now, West Ham and Tottenham, as we know, are bitter rivals and were linked to mutual parties over several of the last couple of transfer windows. And even now, Conte and Moyes are said to be battling one another for other players as the transfer window keeps on going. Now, one area that was a priority for both teams to strengthen in was at right back, and Spurs did go ahead and beat West Ham to the right back here, Djed Spence, and we never really went ahead and solved that issue, which you could say, in theory, has cost West Ham a little bit dearly all season long. Now, Spence lit up the Championship with Nottingham Forest the previous season, and he was being courted by multiple clubs, including West Ham, but he opted to join Spurs, and Conte recently and has admitted that it wasn't really technically his decision to sign the player, and it showed because Spence has just played 5 minutes for Tottenham in the Premier League this season. And Conte's refusal to use him is a clear indication that he has no future at Tottenham Hotspur, especially considering the largely below performances of Emerson Royale and Matt Doherty at the club. Now, West Ham probably went ahead and made an error in not signing the young player. The modern, pacey fullbacks on both sides of the pitch in the summer, and it's contributed to not a great season so far, where we have found that position to be one of our struggling positions, and we've noticed that for a little while. But some reports are saying that there could be some hope for West Ham to finally get our hands on Spence. Tottenham are in current talks with other players, and they're very, very interested in potentially bringing players in who would cover at that position. And before the World Cup, it was claimed that Spurs were open to letting Spence leave on loan in the January transfer window. He currently earns about 25k and doesn't play games for Tottenham. Well, now a new report has reiterated claims of a potentially rare transfer agreement between West Ham and Spurs for Spence in the last week of the window. Now, according to the report, Spurs are very much keen to be looking at letting him move out on loan, and West Ham are potentially one of the suitors, with a few other Premier League clubs interested. Now, bringing him to our club would be absolutely good, and it would be a player that we've obviously done a little bit of research on. And Daniel Levy may be interested in doing a little bit of business with West Ham, considering we've had frosty relationships over the past couple of years, where you could say that this unofficial transfer embargo between the two rivals has gone on for over a decade. But West Ham must ask the question about Spence. Is it exactly what Moyes needs? Is it the sort of player that we need? A pacey right back who can help get in behind and support the attacks. Who is Djed Spence? Who is he? What does he do? He's made his league debut in 2019, December, with Middlesbrough, and he had a memorable first month where he won the EFL Young Player of the Month for 1 goal and 3 clean sheets. Spence would go on to make 50 league appearances for Middlesbrough before his loan moved to Nottingham Forest, and that had turned out to be a very good decision for the player, and his stock had never really been higher, hence the transfer interest from many other Premier League clubs. He had an impactful, importance on the team. He both ends of the pitch, and truly action-packed style of play. The wing-back has been able to be used as supreme energy and his willingness to do whatever the manager asks of him, so he's very utility-style player. His exuberance and joining attacks overloads the opposition every time, and on the other side, Djed Spence is always present to try and win the ball back quickly. His reading of the game was increasingly sharp, as it always has been, and he's continued to put in dominant displays at his previous clubs. And when he was in at the FA Cup, that's really where the world took notice of the player. Facing an Arsenal team who were struggling, Nottingham Forest won 1-0, and Spence put on a fantastic performance in that game live in front of the TV cameras. And a month later, he would report that trick again, defend against the defending champions of the FA Cup at the time, Leicester City, with Spence getting a goal in the 4-1 mauling. Moreover, though, Spence was absolutely solid in the defensive end of things too, with Forest conceding only 2 goals in those 2 games. Therefore, it's becoming clear that he can play regularly at the top level. He's young, he's hard-working, but he can improve any team he chooses to join, and that has been shown normally when he does join those clubs. But he will want to test himself in regular football. And that really brought me to the occasion of going, well, why would West Ham and Tottenham do business? When was the last time that West Ham and Tottenham did business? There is this unofficial transfer embargo over the 2 clubs. And why now would it take for Djed Spence to be the player to stop that unofficial transfer embargo? See, for me, I can't see this deal being done. I do like Djed Spence. I do think he's a player that really would add value to West Ham. But why, first and foremost, would Spurs sell to West Ham, and why would West Ham want to do business? Of course, we want to do business with a good player, but why would Spurs want to do business? And the Spurs came to West Ham for a player. Why would we want to do business with them? So let's take it. Just kind of brought up a little bit of a nostalgic story. Why and who was the last couple of players that left our club to go? So who remembered this man? Scott Parker. He's the most recent player to transfer directly from West Ham to Tottenham for £5 million back in 2011. Spurs signed the then 30-year-old player following West Ham's relegation, and he handed in a transfer request stating his desire to remain and play in the Premier League. Now, the midfielder had spent the previous 4 years at West Ham after a £7 million move from Newcastle, and he'd go on to spend just 2 years in North London. However, before switching to Fulham for £3 million, he stayed at Craven Cottage until retiring in 2017. Parker left West Ham following a strong term on a personal level that returned to his England recall as well. And he was then given the Footballer Writer Association's Player of the Year in 2011, and he was also England's Player of the Year. And he went on to make 63 appearances for Tottenham. Next up, and a lot of people don't really remember this one, and that's Jimmy Walker. He made a short switch from East to North London in 2009 in a free transfer to Spurs from West Ham. West Ham released the goalkeeper, so that technically means it wasn't, but it was. And that summer, at the end of his contract, which saw Harry Redknapp swoop in and bring Jimmy Walker in as cover for Carlo Cudicini at the time. Spurs lacked cover between the sticks after an injury ruled out Aurelio Gomez out for a long period of time, but Walker would only serve as a bench warmer throughout his Tottenham career, failing to make a single appearances across all competitions before leaving in 2010. Redknapp then axed Walker after just 1 season before Walsall picked him up as a shot stopper in October, and previously played for the Saddlers before joining West Ham in 2004, and he remained there until retiring in 2013. Another player to talk about, the young lad, Michael Carrick. He transferred from West Ham to Tottenham in August 2004 for around about £3.5 million. See, when you talk about the money we're talking about, look at the differences into the modern day. And amid rival interest from Palace, Everton, Portsmouth, West Brom, Arsenal also looked into a deal for the player but withdrew their interest. Carrick was reluctant to move to other clubs and chose to go to North London with Tottenham and spend 2 years there. He wanted to win trophies, so he decided to leave Tottenham, of course, and sign with Manchester United, and that obviously was a very good move for him. He went on to make several appearances for Manchester United, winning several trophies. So, you know, you don't move to Spurs if you want to win some stuff. You've got to move elsewhere. Next up was the deal that there's a picture of Michael Carrick, unfortunately, in that top. Jermaine Defoe, he enjoyed 2 spells at Tottenham during his 22-year professional career. First started in February 2004 after joining from West Ham for £7 million, and that lasted until joining Portsmouth 4 years later for £9 million and a late deadline deal sealed as well. The striker had struggled to establish himself as a top dog before joining Portsmouth, but he left with Spurs' last trophy. Defoe helped them to win the 2008 League Cup and rejoined the club a year later for £15 million. Defoe would remain in North London for a further 5 years until joining Toronto for what was an MLS record £6 million. And he also set a joint Premier League record in November 2009 as one of now 5 players to score 5 goals in a single match, beating Wigan Athletic. And last but not least, Freddie Canuti, who remembers him, was Martin Yole's short-lived striker issue player that he brought in during the Dutchman's tenure as Spurs manager. The Mali forward had made the move from North London from West Ham in 2003 for £3.5 million. Yet he'd only last 2 seasons at Tottenham before securing a move away. Now, West Ham explored re-signing Canuti alongside interest from loads of other clubs in the Premier League, but instead he sealed a €6.5 million, you could say, move to the Sevilla where he'd remain until 2012, and that deal worked out really well for Konuté. He went on to win a couple of UEFA Cups as well. He made 73 appearances with Tottenham in all competitions after his transfer from West Ham, but only scored 22 goals. His best Premier League return of 8 came during his final campaign, where he played 32 games. He started 22 times, and Defoe scored 13 over 35 games as well. So what's interesting is, would they do business? And it's not for me. There's a reason why the two clubs don't do business. They've had really bad dealings with in the past. There's been other players that they've been interested in. This is a player who I would love West Ham to sign, but I don't see a deal getting done. Daniel Levy will not want to do business with the Sullivan. Sullivan will not want to do business with Daniel Levy. And they spoke out and said it previously that this is something that we're not going to do moving forward. So let's just park that idea. It's a shame because this could be a quality player. And you know what? I hope I'm proven wrong. I really do hope I am proven wrong, because I'd love nothing more because this is the quality player. This was a player back in the summer that I think most West Ham fans would have absolutely thrived upon bringing in. Player that can get in behind, get forward, and support that mechanism in there. Pacey, young, enthusiastic, English, knows the league, and would do a job. But he's not getting favoured at Spurs right now. But West Ham, no point in talking about it. It's not getting done. Anyway, if you are new around here, please hit that subscribe button, support the channel. We're on the march towards 20,000 subscribers. Going to get there so I can start saying we're on the march towards 25,000 subscribers. Help us out as much as you can. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments. Come on, you irons.